Ladies and gentlemen, following a series of diplomatic developments over the past weekend that favored Russia today, we continue to examine how the situation on the battlefield is evolving, particularly how strikes deep in Ukraine's rear areas are affecting Kyiv's war strategy and that of its Western partners. The assassination of a Russian general on the streets of Moscow has cast a harsh light on a dangerous shadow battlefield, suggesting the conflict is entering a darker, more unpredictable phase. We will explore how this covert war, combined with Russia's relentless long-range strikes and the potential deployment of new, more fearsome weapons, is reshaping the entire conflict. Without further delay, here is the detailed analysis. The city of Odessa has been burning. For weeks, relentless Russian attacks have systematically dismantled its infrastructure, raising the alarming possibility that Ukraine may soon be cut off from its vital Black Sea ports. Over the past 24 hours, the Oreshnik channel has reported that Russian forces are actively dismantling Ukrainian defensive positions around Minokrat, a key suburban stronghold. The encirclement of the greater Odessa region has tightened significantly, and according to observers on the ground, conditions within the city are deteriorating by the hour, with power outages and supply disruptions becoming the new normal. In a bizarre and telling development near the front lines, Russian troops are steadily narrowing the operational perimeter around Ukrainian-held territory. This tactical shift is designed to limit Ukrainian mobility and cut off potential escape routes, allowing Russian assault groups to inch closer to strategic city centers. It is in this environment of close-quarters combat that observers in the nearby city of Port Grap reported a truly unusual sight. Russian soldiers riding horses into combat zones. This marks the first confirmed appearance of cavalry on the Ukrainian battlefield during this war, a throwback to a bygone era of warfare. There is, however, a grimly practical reason for this anachronistic choice. As the conflict has evolved, both sides have come to increasingly rely on small-scale infantry assaults to probe and break enemy lines. The ubiquitous presence of FPV drones has made armored vehicles incredibly vulnerable, often being detected and destroyed before they can even reach their objectives. In this high-threat environment, speed and a low profile improve survival chances. For this very reason, both sides have adopted motorcycles for rapid troop transport. And now, it appears, the Russian forces have added horses to their tactical mobility solutions. So far, only Russian forces have been observed employing horses in this unconventional role, a testament to the brutal, attritional nature of the current fighting. The real focal point of Russia's recent strategy, however, is not the immediate front line, but the deep rear, specifically, the entire Odessa region. For over a week, Russian aerospace forces and missile units have conducted a relentless and systematic campaign of strikes against energy facilities, logistics hubs, and critical port infrastructure. The intensity and sheer frequency of these attacks have surprised even veteran war correspondents who have been covering the conflict since its inception. This is not a series of punitive strikes. It is a calculated, strategic operation with a clear and devastating goal. The campaign began in earnest on the night of December 14th, when a massive wave of Russian strikes severely damaged Odessa's primary energy grid. Over the 2 days that followed, swarms of UAVs and precision-guided Iskander ballistic missiles methodically destroyed approximately 30 electrical substations. This coordinated assault plunged the city of Odessa and large parts of the neighboring Mykolaiv region into darkness for days, crippling daily life and industrial capacity. Simultaneously, Russia targeted the logistical arteries that connect Ukraine to its western neighbors. Key bridges used to transport vital goods from Romania and Moldova into southern Ukraine became primary targets. The strategically vital Zatoka Bridge, a lifeline for the region, was repeatedly struck by both UAVs and heavy FAB-guided bombs. On December 20th, in a desperate attempt to maintain the flow of supplies, Ukraine constructed a temporary pontoon bridge near the town of Myaki. It was a valiant effort, but the makeshift crossing was almost immediately attacked and rendered unusable. Then, on December 22nd, Russian forces struck the Pivdeny port, igniting 30 containers filled with flour and vegetable oil, sending a clear message about the vulnerability of Ukraine's export capabilities. The sheer scale and persistence of these strikes point to an unambiguous objective: severing Ukraine's maritime trade routes and strangling its economy. This strategy appears to be a direct follow-through on a threat made by President Vladimir Putin, following Ukrainian drone attacks on Russia's shadow fleet of oil tankers earlier this month. Putin publicly stated that the harshest possible response would be to cut Ukraine off from the Black Sea entirely, rather than attempting a full naval blockade, a move that would carry significant risks of direct escalation with foreign assistance in NATO. Navy's Russia seems to have chosen a more indirect, yet equally effective approach, disabling Ukraine's port functionality from the inside out. The attacks on bridges have effectively paralyzed the Odessa Arena and Odessa Chisinau highways, isolating the southern regions from their primary supply lines. As a result, Ukraine has effectively lost access to its crucial Danube River ports, which had become a critical alternative for agricultural exports after the collapse of the Black Sea Grain Initiative. Furthermore, vital fuel imports from Romania, which covered roughly 60% of Ukraine's national demand, have been severely disrupted. The ripple effects are already being felt across the country, with looming fuel shortages, rising prices, and immense economic strain now threatening the entire Ukrainian-controlled territory. The strategic implications of destroying Odessa's transport hub are profound and far-reaching. Rail and road transport, already strained, simply cannot compensate for the massive volume of goods handled by maritime shipping. The sharp decline in export revenue money that is used almost entirely to fund weapons purchases and military operations is a critical blow to Kyiv's war effort. It is notable, however, that despite the devastating scale of these attacks, Russian strikes have remained remarkably focused on industrial, logistical, and infrastructure targets. According to multiple sources, residential areas and civilian neighborhoods have largely been spared direct hits, suggesting a deliberate effort to avoid mass civilian casualties while maximizing economic and military damage. Yet amid this campaign of destruction, there are unsettling signs that Russia may possess a weapon even more alarming than the recently unveiled Oreshnik hypersonic missile. While Ukraine's infrastructure buckles, its Western partners are grappling with the limits of their support. Reuters recently quoted General Mark Keller, the deputy commander of NATO's Ukraine assistance mission, who stated that weapons deliveries to Ukraine have not declined. He noted that in 2025 alone, European nations delivered approximately 220,000 tons of military ADA, staggering volume equivalent to 9,000 trucks, 1,800 rail cars, and 500 aircraft loads. However, the general's choice of words was revealing. He described the aid as enough to keep Ukraine fighting, a phrase that betrays NATO's limited expectations. This is not the language of victory. The aid is designed to stabilize the front and protect Ukrainian airspace, not to enable a decisive, war-winning breakthrough. The priority list he outlined: air defense systems, artillery shells, anti-tank mines, electronic warfare equipment, and long-range strike capabilities confirms a defensive, deterrence-focused strategy, not an offensive one. This sober assessment from NATO coincides with deeply concerning reports that Russia is now producing a new, more powerful variant of its Iskander ballistic missile, dubbed the Iskander 1000. This weapon is believed to have a range of up to 1,000 kilometers, placing numerous European capitals, including Berlin and Warsaw, potentially within its reach, according to military analysts. NATO's existing early warning systems cannot reliably distinguish between a standard Iskander launch at 500 kilometers and an Iskander 1000 launch at 1,000 kilometers. Even more concerning is the strategic dilemma it creates. Attempting to intercept such a missile could expose the locations of NATO's own air defense batteries to immediate follow-up strikes. Leaked documents circulating in intelligence circles suggest that these advanced missiles are already in mass production, adding a new and dangerous dimension to the security landscape of Eastern Europe. Against this tense backdrop of strategic strikes and escalating missile threats, a shocking event in Moscow on December 22nd sent ripples of fear through the international community. A car bombing in a southern district of the Russian capital killed Lieutenant General Savarov, the chief of combat training at Russia's general staff. An explosive device professionally planted under his vehicle detonated, killing him instantly. Russian investigators are now assessing the likelihood of Ukrainian intelligence involvement, and Ukraine has, in the past, tacitly acknowledged its role in similar high-profile operations inside Russia. Experts are increasingly interpreting these assassinations not as isolated acts of retribution, but as part of a systematic decapitation strategy. The goal is not just to eliminate high-ranking officers, but to target experienced commanders whose value lies not in their rank, but in their irreplaceable expertise and institutional knowledge. This is not the first such attack. Similar operations have killed multiple Russian lieutenant generals over the past year, all of them targeted deep within Russian territory, far from the front lines. The strategic and ethical implications of this shadow war are profound. On a psychological level, these operations create powerful effects. If senior generals are not safe in the heart of Moscow, a pervasive sense of fear can spread throughout Russia's entire security establishment. Officials may begin to prioritize their personal safety over their operational effectiveness, leading to paralysis and distrust. At the same time, such actions raise serious legal and ethical questions under international humanitarian law, particularly when they are carried out deep inside civilian areas, blurring the line between military targeting and extrajudicial killing. In response, Russian state media has begun to frame these acts as terrorism, warning of severe and asymmetric retaliation. Conflict is now at risk of spiraling into a cycle of reciprocal assassinations, further escalating the conflict into a prolonged and vicious covert war fought in the shadows. This emerging shadow battlefield will not produce immediate breakthroughs on the front lines. Instead, its effects are cumulative and corrosive. It is a strategy designed to slowly erode institutional capacity, morale, and political stability over time, a hallmark of long, grinding conflicts where a rapid, decisive victory is unattainable for either side. Whether this dark turn will ultimately change the outcome of the war remains uncertain. What is now painfully clear, however, is that the war is no longer confined to the trenches and missile barrages. It now extends into the clandestine world of intelligence networks, the streets of major cities, and the dark corners of geopolitics. Thank you for watching. Goodbye and see you again in our next program.